Right. I want to introduce you to somebody, Deneen Borelli. She is the author of Backlash. Deneen is one of the most brave people I think I know. Her and her husband have been fighting against corporate corruption forever. She's a conservative, and she's been fighting against these giant corporations for a while, long before Barack Obama was even, before they were forging his birth certificate there in Finland.
Right.
That's where they did it,
I thought it was Newfoundland.
It was. He's just trying to throw people off the trail.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, they have been, they go to these shareholder meetings and they stand up and they've been trying to clean these corporations up from corruption and everything else for a while. She's African American. She's a Tea Party member, and she's just written a new book called Backlash. How Obama and the left are driving Americans to the American plantation. Only an African American and a brave African American would write this book. Bill Cosby would not write this book, although I believe Bill Cosby would believe much of what's in this book. But you see what they do to anybody who steps out of the line. Doesn't matter what color you are. They'll just decimate you. Deneen, welcome to the program. How are you?
Glenn, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for endorsing my book.
Oh, yeah. No, it's a pleasure to do it. You are a good friend and somebody who I've watched for a long time say dangerous things, and they're becoming more and more dangerous. Would you agree?
Well, listen, there is an absolute sense of urgency going on in our country right now. We're at a crossroads. People need to take their head out of the sand. People need to be active and vocal and not be afraid to be targeted, criticized, and called names. And that is why I wrote Backlash.
But if somebody like Bill Cosby can be pilloried in his own community, and he's not saying anything bad, he's clearly not racist, and he's not saying anything bad, he's just speaking the truth, and it's not just a black truth, it's a white truth as well.
No, you're absolutely right, and it's too bad he, kind of cowered away from speaking his mind. But this is what we're faced with in our country. We have the liberal left that will make an example of anyone, especially if you're a black conservative, criticizing in this day and age the big government policies coming out of the Obama administration.
You say that there's a conspiracy with the EPA. Can you explain?
I do believe there is a conspiracy because of Obama's desire really to propel the green energy industry and to really criticize the fossil fuel industry. And this conspiracy really is a way to lower our living standards so that the rest of the world can catch up to America. We have a wealth of natural resources, cheap, abundant, plentiful. President Obama has a war on coal, on fossil fuels. He's trying to drive up the prices of fossil fuels to make them more cost competitive with the green energy. But in the meantime, he is harming hardworking Americans, people on fixed incomes, people who are living in poor households. He is harming our country.
You say the American plantation. Yeah, I know you picked that word with purpose. Why did you pick that word, and what do you mean by it?
Well, what I mean by that is that today our government is driving more and more people to rely on government. Today's government is yesterday's plantation, and the facts don't lie. 46 million people on food stamps, unnecessarily high unemployment, especially in the black community. It's over 15% in the black community. Among black teens, it's approaching 40%. We have too many people relying on government for basic everyday needs, for food, for housing, for utilities. But sadly, if you look at the policies, they are driving more and more Americans to rely on the government. And this is not the American way. People should be independent, self-sufficient. But look at what is coming out of the White House today.
Tell me about the food stamp president. Is it okay to call him the food stamp president?
Well, listen, yeah. I mean, he should be putting policies in place that are going to grow our economy and create job growth. I mean, when you look at his energy agenda, for example, that is something that affects everybody. You got to fill up your tank. You want to turn on your lights when you want to, not when you can afford to. I've been reading about how people have not been turning all of their lights on in their house because they're trying to cut back. People are hurting right now, but this is a wealth transfer. You know, when you think about it, when Obama was running for president, he was big on wealth transfer, and this is a way to transfer wealth to his crony capitalist friends. We pay higher energy costs in the end, and it's harming our country.
Deneen, they're now trying to say that Martin Luther King was a communist and that it was always about the transfer of wealth. Do you believe in any of that?
Absolutely not, Glenn. And, you know, that's just ridiculous for people to make such a claim. Martin Luther King was for equal rights, equal opportunities for all Americans, but during his time, his fight was for blacks to have equal opportunities for everything: jobs, housing, education.
So how are we going to get American blacks to see the truth when you can't see the truth anywhere? They're not teaching it in school. They've erased African American history. They're beginning to pervert African American history from the 1960s and the 1970s. And if someone like you, a conservative, stands up, they shout you down and put you into your place. How do you convince African Americans in the all around the country? How do you convince them to stand up?
Well, one thing you have to keep in mind is that some people you are not going to be able to reach. But on the flip side, there are blacks who are very open-minded about.
So in other words, you're saying I should stop calling Al Sharpton.
What I'm saying is that, listen, I've had blacks who have contacted me personally by Facebook, by email. They tell me that they agree with what I say. They agree with how I think and how I believe in free market. But they're so afraid of being criticized and demonized by their friends, their family, their coworkers. That is why I wrote Backlash. I lay out in Backlash that it's okay to be demonized and criticized for what you stand for, what you believe in. Listen, if our military personnel can risk their lives to keep us free and safe, the least I can do is run my mouth for liberty. And they can call me anything they want because I really don't care.
Deneen, as I said, you are one of the bravest people that I know. You and your husband do an awful lot of good work to keep freedom alive. The name of the book is Backlash: How Obama and the Left Are Driving Americans to the American Plantation. And I have to tell you something. There is nothing that would drive the left more crazy than this rocketing to the top of the booksellers list. So please go out and pick up the book or grab it online, Backlash. It is well worth the read, and it will drive them out of their minds. Deneen, thank you so much. Talk to you again.
Thank you so much.
You got it.